So good afternoon, Daithí. Imagine we have arrived at our conversation around blog 9. And has it been a roller coaster of delving deep and asking the daring questions and gaining traction, I would think. So blog 9, interviewing you, Daithí, on navigating the new frontier, the integration of AI in education and ed tech, ethical challenges, teacher-student AI competencies, and the psychological dynamics of human AI collaboration in the workplace. And as you know, I am big into the psychological, particularly the org-psych angle on all of this. And I'll be pushing you on that in some of my questions this week. But first of all, I'd like to turn our attention A, to the elephant in the room, and B, to the UNESCO competency framework. And then we'll delve into the blog itself. So for our listeners, describe that very interesting elephant this week to us all.
Well, as we described the elephant, Teresa, and thank you, blog number 9. First of all, I will say welcome to my background today.
Singularity. Here we come.
Yes, here we come. And from everything I'm reading out there at this moment in time, I see everything we've talked about 8 blogs ago, that people were in many ways questioning this idea of super AI, this idea of ASI, this idea of singularity that people thought is way, way out there. Now all of the gurus, again, we won't go in there, but particularly all of the godfathers, i.e. and godmothers. I'm waiting for those to pop up, by the way, the godmothers. But the godfathers and the grandfathers of AI are now saying we're a hell of a lot closer than we thought. So what are we talking about? This week, the elephant in the room is a rather interesting one because we love to start with that. The elephant in the room this week, in particular because we're talking about so much, is this massively, nearly Picasso-esque sense of elephant that is so splattered, so in your face. Look at the eyes and the tusks of that elephant, because we're reaching a point, I believe, right now where we're not just on a one canvas anymore, where there is one artist painting one picture. We're now in a multimodal, multi-dimensional, multi-possibility of everything from the competences to which you referred.
Sure.
Some people call them competencies. I'm not going to call it tomato and tomato. It's up to you. And the idea of the ethical issues. Also the idea of the psych, which is, of course, your expertise, and the workplace and education and ed tech. My God, we are actually, in the Gaelic language, we would say, Tá muid ag satilt halv vanaha. We are spitting on holy ground this morning. And we, in the past, if this was the time of great religious, shall we say, issues, this will be the time of Reformation, but it also could be the time of the Inquisition. Yes. And you know what? Probably would be crucified upside down for this blog.
I know. But I love asking the hard questions. And in all my career as an educator and now as an organizational psychologist, I said, unless we ask the hard questions, we'll be surprised at the end with what we end up with. And it's right on target what I'm asking you. First of all, I'm going to start off reverting. I don't want to repeat old ground for our listeners, but it's important to remind our listeners about the UNESCO competency frameworks. And I have a few quick fire questions for you on that, and then we move on to analysis of your blog. And we'll wind up with my thoughts from an organizational, psychological perspective, because imagine a lot of people out there do not consider schools as workplaces. The teachers somehow meld in with the students in the classrooms, but they're not workplaces as society knows it in their own minds. And I argue with that. Okay, UNESCO's competency frameworks emphasizes AI literacy as a fundamental teacher capability. How do you see the progression from basic AI awareness to what UNESCO terms AI creation and citizenship playing out in the real classroom setting, particularly in contexts with varying resource levels?
You've hit too many nails and too many hammers, but let's take what the competencies are looking for. The competences are like action with vision. It has presented a vision when it comes to educators to ensure that they are engaged, enabled, and empowered to utilize AI, agentic AI, in the classroom to prepare the citizens of the future for the society which does not yet exist, but doing it in a way where they can use the tools and or the applications or the agentics which are there, the agents, the AI agents. And in order to do that, we need to go back a step. How can they do that unless they are prepared to do so? And how can they be prepared unless someone is willing to invest in ensuring? Because if you take Ireland, which is, let's be honest about it, for a small nation, probably we have one of the world's most vibrant tech environments I mean that globally here. And yet we have, and I'm going to get shot here, we have teacher unions who are absolutely, in the old Roman terms, in a vomitorium, stating that it cannot be done. Now, I want to say I understand why. Because the teachers are not being prepared to put the curriculum into an agentic model or AI application to present this to students in that way. So I understand that, but I have a problem that many are saying, no, don't want it, not going to do it, it's going to go away. Just look, if I don't look at the wind, it'll go away.
We're altering ourselves, we're holding ourselves back. So it's all about resourcing, both hard resource and human resource. And I would say the union is trying to lay pressure on for resourcing with the Department of Education, etc. But in so doing, shooting themselves in the foot by halting progress.
Well, how can you continue to be at the world's cutting edge as a small nation in the area of technology if you are denying the fact that AI is vital for the citizens?
You know how? You import who's working in the organizations, and that's what's happening already.
Yeah, but we already have people here in Ireland who can actually provide this continuous professional development, who can provide this access in an ethical, professional, secure, meaningful, mindful, soulful manner to ensure that teachers, I'm going to do this, have this digital divide bridged.
Sure, but somebody needs to light that fire.
Well, like the song goes, baby, will you light my fire? And that must come from the Minister of Education. And the Minister for Education and Skills, I believe, has pushed this forward, but to a point, she's now getting pushback. And again, I want to acknowledge, I understand why the pushback, but I do not understand that people still seem to believe that if I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of psychological toing and froing and games going on. The UNESCO framework places significant emphasis on the ethical handling of student data in AI-enhanced learning environments. How can we balance the benefits of AI's personalized learning capabilities with data privacy concerns and the development of what UNESCO calls critical digital agency among our students? So you've got GDPR in there, you've got the EU AI Act in there, you've got UNESCO framework trying to embrace it all and serve everybody. Is it possible?
Right now, Teresa, what people are not acknowledging is that a lot of schools, most schools, I would pretty much say in Ireland, every school is using some form of data gatherer because the Department of Education and Skills demands this feedback from certain fora or forums. So the only difference is this information is already available, being provided to those who need this information from whatever statistical analysis they need to do every year or during the year. All this is doing in AI is, it's like something, putting it simply, it's like taking a helmet and putting an aerodynamic helmet on a cyclist so that he, she, or they, sorry, Mr. Trump, he, she, or they can actually move much more efficiently through the wind. AI allows these models that are already in school to work much more efficiently from an administrative perspective. And these models are built specifically with education, and the government's looking at them to ensure that they're ethically, I suppose, transparent. And the information then, look, we don't know what, look, all I can say is this. AI is not there to say, I'm going to deal unethically with this stuff under GDPR. AI is a spoonful of sugar that will do what it's meant to do. The coder is what needs to be looked at, but from the UNESCO competences, what it's asking for is something that is attainable as long as we keep a firm eye on the fact of the human within the human AIology. So to summarize, schools are using these agents already without AI, many of them. AI will just enhance the capacity of these initiatives, these applications to work much more efficiently, effectively, faster, to draw much more, I suppose, data in a way that they are available to inform how we move forward. There's no issue here.
Right. So UNESCO's competency model highlights the importance of teachers being AI-informed decision makers. How do you envision supporting teachers in developing both the technical and pedagogical competencies needed to make informed choices about and when and how to integrate AI tools into their teaching practice?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, you go from the known to the unknown. Teachers are professionals. They have come from colleges of education, and in those colleges of education, they have been prepared on a myriad of platforms to ensure that they will bring meaningful voice of the child and of themselves to a classroom that can be co-designed under so many pedagogical options and so many different methodological approaches. But the fact is, we have to go back to the fact that the colleges of education must now ensure that teachers are made aware of and exposed to those AI agents or platforms. And indeed, I have the privilege at the moment of being in projects like AI-4 edu.eu and Synapses Academies, and indeed Astronomy, and indeed EcoSteam and SteamScape and AI VR, in which we have developed and designed LLMs and NLPs, natural language modeling, to empower teachers and with their students, co-empower them, again, I say in a constructionist environment, to design their lessons relevant to the various curricula in a multilingual environment. So we're already doing this at European project level. The problem is that departments of education around Europe, many of them have nearly banned the use of AI. I'm sorry, some of them have banned the use of even devices in schools now. Duh.
Wow. I know. So there's a tug of war going on, really, isn't there? It's all about teacher upskilling. It's all about getting to the teacher training colleges. The framework speaks of knowledge creation as a key competency area. How can we ensure that AI integration enhances rather than replaces the collaboration knowledge building processes that UNESCO identifies as crucial for 21st century learning?
Well, I think I'm going to make an easy answer on this particular one. We look globally on the word assessment, and assessment is a one-type model in many ways. But the fact is, people are neurodiverse. So assessment does not suit everyone. So therefore, PISA, which is the big PISA, came out a few years back with the dirty word, Teresa, called creativity. That you got to assess creativity. So I'm going to say this. We need to look on the pedagogue, the slave who walks the children to school, the professional teacher, as a human being who is oozing creativity, and therefore we should be nurturing that creativity to ensure that the vision of the UNESCO competences, and indeed the vision of the countries that have put out their own AI policy, including EU AI and OECD and the United Nations, so that the creative in the classroom, not the sage in the stage, the constructionist co-designer in that classroom is creatively and meaningfully, ethically and professionally utilizing AI Again, I state, I'm so sorry, listeners, to prepare the children for the society which does not yet exist, but can do it now. But creativity is vital here.
While retaining their own natural creativity and enhancing it through collaboration with AI. Am I right?
The human creativity and then the AIology.
Yes.
Human first.
UNESCO emphasizes the importance of societal implications understanding in their AI competency framework. How do you see schools balancing the development of AI competencies with what UNESCO terms human-centered values in education, particularly in terms of maintaining cultural sensitivities and inclusive practices?
Every school has core values. Every country has core values, has indeed culture. But no one can say the Irish culture is Irish dancing, this is culture. Therefore, the way you can do that is, again, the EU AI Act has done its best for looking at all its member states to do that. But how can it do it? Each school, in many ways, when there's a curriculum there, again, if you take the departments of education, utilizing the most futuristic and disruptive thinkers, and get them to design the applications, the agents that can bridge that gap between the AI and the curriculum, the human and the AIology. That's how it's done. It has to be a partnership. So I've done this before. That's a hand. That's a fist. If I hit you with this, I'll break my fingers. But hopefully if I hit you with this, which I never will do, then hopefully I will not break my fingers, my fist. We need to think like this. We need to think holistically. Look at the words I'm using. Creatively. We need to think critically. The skills and core values that humans have, which AI does not have.
So the emphasis has to be on the nurturing of these skills and competencies in the human that are irreplaceable, and to value that and see them as irreplaceable.
The human needs to understand that throughout history, different things have tried to replace us. And in many ways, you know what? We've probably been our own worst enemy in that, because we tried to replace ourselves. But there are certain things that we have that are beautiful. They are incredibly, uniquely magnificent. We sometimes forget, particularly when you read the news every day, you wonder how the hell could that person be human? But we need to stand up and say, we actually are a very, very incredibly beautiful, wonderful, meaningful, soulful,
we need to take ownership of it, yes.
We do, but the fact is, it's, you know, the Irish saying and has said, there are none so blind as those who do not wish to see. Not even can't see. Those who don't even wish to see. We need to open our eyes. It's like that beautiful story we used to have many, many years ago by one of our lovely, I suppose, authors, Padraig Pearse, The Windows of Wonder. We need to open the windows of wonder and let the air in. And also not forget to look out.
So we're going on to the blog analysis, and I have a few short questions for you on that. We won't get lost amidst it because a lot of the areas we've covered already. So in your abstract, you say the rapid integration of AI into education and ed tech offers immense potential to transform teaching and learning practices. However, this integration raises significant ethical concerns related to privacy, bias, accountability, transparency, and teacher-student autonomy. These are areas we've hit on already in blog 7 and 8 to date. So let's take each of these concerns. So look at the privacy, for instance. How do we address what MIT researchers call the digital footprint dilemma, where AI-enhanced learning requires extensive student data collection, potentially creating permanent digital records that could impact students' future opportunities?
I suppose the easiest thing is this. We've talked about this before. If I give you a hammer, what is a hammer for?
I know, hitting a nail.
Right. If we develop an agent, an AI agent, that is going to gather data, we have to know what that hammer is for. And unless we do, then we should not use it. So the data that's being collected, that data are there specifically for whatever it is.
Yeah.
We are not collecting data so that the data are available to do other things, to be examined in other ways. If it's a hammer, it's got a job to hit a nail. If it is a spatula, it's got a job to work in the kitchen. If it is a spoon, so we just have to ensure, again, I come back to the point you said.
Yeah.
The government needs to ensure that these companies that are developing any form of application or tool that is going to be used in education must be vetted in a manner to ensure that it does exactly what it says on the TAIN, tin.
But the government needs to be up to speed as well. And they need to be doing their reading, and they need to be staying connected with what's going on. I know
you need to have advisory boards there, and they need to ensure that they're in there watching this. And indeed, I would have to say this, the Irish government is doing that. I would have to say that Minister Darragh O'Leary has done this, and I know that the Taoiseach, as it stands, Simon Harris, has put together the groups to do this as well.
Excellent, yeah.
Now, we could argue as to who's on that advisory board, but the reality is governments are trying to do this, but they need to get ahead of the posse.
Sure, they need to speed it up. I know you gave the example from China, but research from the Education Data Privacy Consortium shows that AI-powered educational platforms typically collect over 200 data points per student session, including behavioral patterns, learning speeds, attention spans, and error types. Now, this granular data collection, while valuable for personalization, creates vulnerable digital profiles that could be misused for profiling, tracking, or commercial purposes. And the concern extends beyond immediate privacy to long-term implications of having detailed learning histories potentially accessible to future employers or institutions. Okay, so let's go on to the bias question. How can we prevent AI systems from perpetuating what Stanford's AI education lab terms the algorithmic educational inequity, where existing societal biases become embedded in and amplified by AI-driven learning systems?
It's a very difficult one, that, because it's funny, I've seen a lot of research and I've read a lot of research on this AI bias. And again, the first point I always make is AI is not biased, because AI is a 0-1 binary, for the want of a better algorithm or code. It is the human being that's coding it, is not coding it in a manner. So the way I can only put this is simple. An AI agent can only do what it has been trained, notice the verb, trained to do.
Yes.
Now,
so you have to control for the biases of the trainer.
Correct. So therefore, if you take the documentation on what bias is and anti-bias, and you feed that into the training of your model, then because it can do 200-300 billion trillion permutations per second, it will access that. Now, the other side of that, Teresa, is the planet A, Daithí. There is no planet B, because every time it's looking at 3 trillion combinations, permutations, it's creating a sustainable, non-sustainable footprint out there. But if you train the model correctly and not just write the code, then the code will refer to the model before it presents the solution. So the only way it can be done again is this. A good carpenter measures twice and cuts once. Most AI applications out there allow the AI to measure and cut, in which case there's a huge proponency towards and possibility from the research, as I've seen, that AI bias is a reality, even down to race, color, creed, religion, etc.
Studies from the APA's Educational Technology Division reveal that AI systems often exhibit bias in areas like language assessment, favouring certain dialects, problem-solving evaluation, privilege-specific cultural approaches, and content recommendations, reinforcing stereotypical career pathways, for instance. Now, these biases can systematically disadvantage certain student groups while appearing objectively data-driven. Let's move on to accountability question. In an AI-enhanced classroom, where learning decisions are increasingly algorithmic driven, who bears responsibility when AI systems make recommendations that negatively impact student outcomes? Where does the responsibility lie? The designer, the vendor, the educator? Where does responsibility lie? And the legal systems of the future will have a heyday. Obviously, law isn't written yet and precedent hasn't been set. But where does the responsibility lie?
All of the above. But again, I bring you back to the start. Every single person who in any way has engaged with that and not looked at the QED, the final possibility of what that's doing, is by association culpable.
Sure.
When I go back to the very start, please forgive me, what idiot allowed such an application into an educational environment if it's that flawed? If it is, again, you should have been educated enough to know what it is and isn't doing, can and can't do, but whoever developed this should have done so under, similar to UNESCO, competencies, benchmarks that were checked, double-checked, triple-checked before any student was even allowed or teacher next, nigh or near that application.
Yeah,
because, Lisa, it's like me giving you a car. If you can buy a car
Yes.
for me and I've not checked it for NCT or MOT for 10 years and it's all flawed and I sell it to you and you kill yourself because the brakes are there, the fact is I can't say, oh, geez, it wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with it. I gave you a car, but I didn't bother to look at what the issues, problems were. Therefore, I handed on my problems to you. I am as responsible for your death as is that car. But as are you for not having a mechanic there to check the car out. And the fact of the matter is, as for the government that didn't check that that car was on the road without an MOT. And so everyone has to take responsibility here. But bring it back to the point. The person coding needs to know that there are benchmarks that he, she, or they need to hit, that there are specific
Yes, but who's providing those benchmarks and the speed at which they're going has far surpassed the educators' learning on the ground. And that's the conundrum.
I'm going to be disruptive. When AI singularity comes in to check itself and make damn sure the human was flawed, it will go to all of the information that's out there to rewrite the necessary program to ensure that this stops, because it will be faster, quicker, more efficient in doing that research to ensure it can rewrite itself under singularity, under super AI, ASI.
Harvard's Education Innovation Lab highlights a growing accountability gap where neither educators, administrators, nor AI developers take full responsibility for AI-driven educational decisions. And this becomes particularly problematic when AI systems influence critical decisions about students' placement, their advancement, or intervention strategies without clear lines of human oversight and responsibility. So it's a nut to be cracked yet. It's there, and it's acknowledged that it is a problem. Let's look at the transparency question. How do we ensure that that's what the MIT Media Lab calls algorithmic literacy among educators and students, when many AI systems operate as black boxes, making decisions through processes that even their developers may not fully understand themselves?
Everything that we've said before this. Again, Teresa, it's as simple as this. I'm going to be funny, a little bit funny here if I can for a moment. Cross my hand and palm with silver, and I will tell you your future. And in many ways, that's how we're treating AI. But again, inform, measure twice, cut once, upskill, upgrade, be aware, look at it as a human being, get it checked, double checked. Know that every time you open an application on your computer right now, everyone who's listening will be asked, do you accept the cookies?
I know.
And most don't even bother going into the settings to reject the cookies. So once you accept the cookie, you've got someone going, num, 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 I'm following you. So everything is done so that that data can be collected, and that data are then used for specific reasons. Is it right? No. And the EU AI Act is very clear in this, that you cannot gather data on people. But again, it's all about ensuring that before you cut the bread, you know that what type of bread it is that you're eating. If you could be celiac, you could be this. You also know that the knife you have can cut the bread. In other words, ensuring that before you get into something, you do in the best way possible, humanly and humanely. You check what it is you're using. Because if you just use something for the fun of it, we've taken this analogy before, you might as well put a 4-year-old behind the wheel of a Formula One car and put them out on the motorway.
Well, that's what's happening. You see, the research from the International Journal of Education and Technology shows that most educators and students cannot meaningfully understand or challenge AI-generated recommendations, creating a dangerous power dynamic where educational decisions are increasingly delegated to opaque systems without proper scrutiny or understanding.
I want to go a step further if I might before we get in and say my problem with all of this, Teresa, and I know people are not going to agree with me here. Too many educators are now setting themselves up as AI experts and gurus, and what they're doing is they're running all these webinars showing teachers how to use 2 applications, but none of them are looking at what this application actually is and what it does. In other words, we're back to the thing of giving them so much sugar that we have now the problem of obesity. And if necessary, you could have everything from diabetes to death. They're not looking at the elephant in the room.
Let's come to the last one then, the teacher-student autonomy question. How do we prevent what the APA terms technological determinism in education, where AI systems might gradually erode teacher and student agency in the learning process? Now, you gave the example in your blog, the teacher impact automated lesson planning tools like Scribe Sensei may reduce teachers' ability to design personalized curricula. Student impact, the personalized learning platforms risk pigeonholing students into specific tracks, limiting exposure to diverse opportunities. They're all quoted in your blog. So what do you say to that? How do you address that problem?
I quote it because it's very simple. Again, to challenge the human being to stand up and to show his, her, or their humanity, their creativity, their capacity, because all of these agents will do what they say on the tin, what I've written about in blog 9. But what's to stop the teacher and the student looking at, for example, the teacher, the lesson plan that is designed like Scribe, and say, well, actually, I'd prefer to put this in. I want to make it more diverse for these students. And then the students to say, well, actually, I'd like if we could do this, and look at their prompts and see how they are being utilizing their human traits in their personalized learning journey. In other words, don't take the human out of the AIology. I know I'm saying that.
I know.
But I have to mention it because there are, again, the point I made. So many people out there are providing millions of webinars that are showing that these are the Valhalla of AI. And if you use them, everything will be perfect. It won't, because you're blindly walking into the fire.
You can't abdicate your responsibility. Recent studies from the Educational Psychology Review indicate a growing trend where both teachers and students increasingly defer to AI recommendations, even when they conflict with their own human judgment or intuition. That's where the laziness comes in. This erosion of autonomy raises concerns about the development of critical thinking skills and the maintenance of authentic human relationships in the educational setting. Now, let's move on quickly to question 2. They're all subsets of the first question. Now, you said in your blog, furthermore, as AI adoption expands into the workplace, a profound exploration of the algorithmic workforce and the psychological dynamics of human AI collaboration is crucial. Now, I'm asking you, has the horse bolted? Are we too late in A, undertaking this research in the education sector, and B, applying any findings to influence the development and rollout of AI, which is going at a pace far surpassing educators' upskilling and learning?
The difference between a 5K and a 10K is very often the time. The difference between a 10K and a half marathon is very often the athlete and the full marathon. But here's what happens. In a 5K, 10K, half marathon, you have a winner and someone gets a gold medal. You know that.
Yes, yes.
But in an ultra marathon, anyone who crosses the line is a winner.
Mm.
There is no one prize.
Mm.
This is an ultra marathon. But at the moment, it's a 60-meter sprint. And everyone can only see the sprint. The reality is AI has been around for 50 years or more. We have to look on this as an ultra marathon where the human who can continue to move and continue to look at the research, implement the research, even though it's going faster than them. If I run against Usain Bolt right now, the guy has gone home making his tea before I finished 100 meters. But if we do an extreme ultra marathon, I think you know me well enough.
Yes.
Somehow or other, after 5 days, the old Daithí is still going.
Yes.
Because
it's about pace.
Arnold Schwarzenegger said, maybe old, but not obsolete. It's all about festina lente, hasten slowly, because everyone else is going too fast.
Sure.
Don't fear the pace. Look at it as an extreme ultra marathon.
I think we're going through a giddy period now, and the powers that be, and media, etc., pushing as well. But the cognitive load and decision fatigue research point, Harvard Business Review studies show that workers interfacing with AI experience what's termed algorithmic decision overwhelm, where the need to constantly evaluate AI recommendations alongside human judgment creates new forms of cognitive strain. And you could see that happening. You know, you've got professional identity and self-efficacy research point. APA, workplace studies indicate that professionals working alongside AI often experience what they term competency uncertainty, questioning their own expertise when AI systems challenge their judgments. And then you're looking at the social professional dynamics research point. MIT workplace research shows fundamental shifts in team dynamics when AI becomes a team member. Now that's interesting. And it's affecting traditional hierarchies and collaboration patterns. It's one that we never really thought about, where AI becomes a team member. And then you have the psychological safety and innovation research point. Stanford's work psychology lab identifies a phenomenon they called AI-induced risk aversion, where workers become hesitant to challenge or to deviate from AI recommendations. And finally then, skill evolution and learning anxiety research point. McKinsey Workforce Development Research identifies continuous adaptation stress as workers face constant pressure to evolve their skills alongside AI. Get me on to question 3. Bridging the digital divide. The uneven distribution of AI resources and unequal access to AI tools exasperates educational inequities. Schools are under-resourced regions. In under-resourced regions such as Sub-Saharan Africa face connectivity challenges. The World Bank said that. And as I glibly say, why would the World Bank have a concern about such a digital divide? Why would they care?
Very simply, because there is no planet B. The world needs Africa. Africa doesn't need the world. We're not going to get into the economics of what one perceives to be wealth right now. But if you have a continent with some of the most incredible populations that has been treated in a manner which I don't think even an AI that would be, if an AI was impartial, even it couldn't be impartial in the manner in which the First World is treating many of the African nations right now. But the reason it's mentioned is this, and I want to take the positive. Isn't it wonderful for the first time that a group like the World Bank, even though they've done incredible work, European Investment Bank, the African Nations Bank, and like in West Africa, ECOWAS, which is similar to the EU, is actually acknowledging the vital importance of bridging that digital divide in African nations. But the problem is very simply this. you have tens of millions of people right now in a world where there's more than 4 times as much food as any person on this earth needs to eat each day produced, 4 times as much. And we have tens of millions of people starving to death right now. So I think that maybe what the World Bank has done is incredible in acknowledging it and recognizing it. But as someone said before, if I can't put water, and forget about bread on the table, I can't even provide fresh water, then, you know,
where are we going?
Shame on me, and shame on us as a first word for what we're doing.
So we look at it from economic growth and human capital development. So the World Bank recognizes AI literacy is becoming fundamental to economic participation.
Yes. Agreed.
And when Sub-Saharan Africa faces systemic AI access barriers, it creates what economists call a compound disadvantage effect. It creates where existing economic gaps widen exponentially as AI-driven economies advance. And finally, the World Bank's research indicates that countries lacking basic AI educational infrastructure risk being permanently locked out of high-value global economic activities. And then if you think of the 17 SDGs, the digital divide directly impacts SDG number 4, which is quality education, and again, SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth. So the World Bank's investment in addressing this issue stems from their mandate to support these goals. The labour market integration research from the World Bank shows that economies with limited AI education infrastructure face reduced participation, limited ability to attract technology-based foreign investment, decreased competitiveness in global labour markets, and reduced capacity for innovation and entrepreneurship. And then you've got, of course, the social stability and migration. You've got increased economic migration pressures, social instability from the youth's unemployment perspective, and widening income inequality between regions and reduced social mobility. So return on investment perspectives for the World Bank, it can help countries leapfrog traditional development stages. It creates multiplier effect across various economic sectors, etc., etc. Let's take you on to question 4. Educational systems worldwide face what Harvard's Education Innovation Lab terms the autonomy paradox. How to harness AI's powerful capabilities while ensuring students develop robust independent capabilities. So in light of this, how do we architect educational environments that achieve what might seem contradictory goals, i.e. maximizing AI's benefits while strengthening human agency and critical thinking? That's been my war cry throughout all of the analysis on your blogs. Maximizing AI's benefits while strengthening human agency and critical thinking.
I'm going to take Ireland as a model right now because I could talk about many others, but I will. I want to compliment the Government of Ireland and the Minister of Education for introducing 2 new subjects into our senior cycle. One of those, of course, would be the idea of climate action, sustainability as a senior cycle like GCSE, baccalaureate, etc. The second one is film and drama, etc. as a subject, which again is creativity, which we mentioned about in PISA. The important thing is, the one thing that destroys education is the fact that the end assessment in education is an assessment designed for one type of person. But people are neurodiverse. So the way I would say this is autonomy. We have to stop this one-size-fits-all assessment model. We have to look at the manner in which the creativity of subjects like film, drama, like sustainability and climate action can be introduced as a subject to bring a deeper understanding of ourselves as humans in an AI environment or a world that is oozing it, that is actually nearly all pervasive right now. And again, come back to what you said, the human within the AIology. And we have to ensure, and this is the problem, because people feel that if you can't assess it, it's no good. And people want to understand. So what is wrong with the idea of, and I've said this before, people using AI, but showing what prompts they use, what creativity did they use, what way did they interact as humans to get to the end journey, and then reflecting on that and learning from that reflection to reinform themselves so they become more resilient as humans in dealing with what is a spoonful of sugar, which is an application, a tool. But as we head towards singularity, remember, that will become a chameleon, a shape shifter, the capacity to overwrite and rewrite itself. And if we allow it to reach that stage in the present mindset we have, now we've got a problem.
Absolutely. So there's a whole body of unlearning and relearning that has to take place, isn't there?
Learning, unlearning, relearning, as Toffler comes on the whole idea. Absolutely.
So you've got the cognitive development balance. Research from the APA shows that over-reliance on AI-driven solutions can inhibit the development of fundamental problem-solving neural pathways. You've got the critical thinking architecture. MIT's Teaching Systems Lab identifies a risk of students developing that algorithmic dependence, defaulting to AI solutions before attempting independent analysis. And that is my great worry. And creative capacity building. The challenge Stanford research indicates that premature AI integration can inhibit original thinking by providing ready-made solutions. That's where we render the human lazy. Well, press the button and it'll give me the answer. Agency and self-efficiency. Educational psychology review studies show students may develop learned helplessness when AI tools are readily available for all challenges. And finally, you've got the assessment revolution. Traditional assessment methods become obsolete in an AI-enabled world. So the core principles, just briefly, emerging from research is what Stanford AI's educational labs call augmented autonomy, where AI tools are integrated in ways that enhance rather than replace human capabilities. Structured AI access, metacognitive development, hybrid skill development, and ethical framework integration. I'm sure there are times that you feel like you're getting a lecture from Teresa, but I just go mad on this research when I'm getting ready for our chats, you know?
Yeah. And it's important to do so. But someone said to me recently, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, thank you. I said, if I said to you the Olympics, what do you think of? They think of all these powerful athletes around the world breaking world records. I said, okay, what do you think of in the Paralympics? And they tell me, I said, now go back 50 years. They said, what do you mean? I said, look at the Paralympians today. They have titanium this, they've got this. In other words, they have been augmented to ensure that they are in a position where they can show the incredible capacity, gifts, and the wonderful talents they have. And all that has happened is that we and they have found. So AI is like that. Imagine that the humanity is now a Paralympian, and AI can give us what we need to be Olympians, and together we are stronger. And that is the only way and then someone said to me, well, I get that. I said, but now, because 50 years ago or 20 years ago, if you had no legs, if you had no hands, you were just considered to be disabled or worse.
So the trick is to embrace the benefits of AI, but it must be done on a solid foundation.
The human being is still the one running the legs.
Yeah.
The human being is still the one lifting the weights with the mind and the creativity and the training in the brain. The AI just...
Yeah.
It just...
So algorithmic workforce, the benefits and challenges, you've written a lot on that in your blog, and you keep referring to resilience training.
Yeah.
Now, the absence of teacher resilience training represents what the Harvard Business Review terms critical organizational blind spot. And it's alive and well, where short-term cost savings create exponential long-term losses through teacher burnout, turnover, and diminished educational quality. Recent APA studies indicate that every dollar invested in teacher resilience training returns $5 to $7 in reduced absenteeism, improved student outcomes, and decreased replacement costs. That's worth thinking about, isn't it?
Well, if you can get a 5-to-1 return on anything, there was a guy in Ireland a long time ago called Gay Byrne, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
probably had the longest. And he used to say, if you can tell the future, who's going to win the 230 out in Leopardstown, the horse race? But the fact is, if you know that I put $1 into something, I'm going to get
Yeah.
5 ROI, return on investment. And again, the important thing is, where resilience is concerned, we're back to the extreme ultramarathon again. What makes a difference between a 5K runner and an extreme ultramarathon lunatic
Yes.
is the capacity for resilience. Can take the pain, but knows that as long as you can keep moving, you will reach a point, which some people call the finish, which becomes the beginning again. In the workforce, if we keep telling our workforce, and by the way, you mentioned it recently, I can put robots into board meetings right now that they're being developed, whereby they have the capacity to offer opinion, to look at what's happening, to judge the human beings, to see the psychosomatic connections and be able to make decisions. The fact of the matter is that we, whether it's workplace, whether it's education, whether it's in edtech, whether it's anywhere, we have to just understand that we are programming this, but we also have the capacity at this moment to embrace in a manner that can enhance, like the Paralympian.
In a constructive manner, absolutely.
In a constructive way. And you are the expert when it comes to the whole psychodynamics of what's there. But if I'm a human being and I keep getting beaten down by a machine, what am I going to do?
I know. So the key changes required: funding structure reform, research basis.
Yeah.
The policy framework adjustment, research evidence.
Mm-hmm.
The Stanford's Educational Policy Institute shows, I thought this was interesting, shows that schools without mandated wellness programs experience 32% higher teacher turnover. Needed changes are legislative requirements for teacher wellness programs, integration of resilience metrics into school evaluation criteria, and policy-backed protection of professional development time. And finally, then you're looking at administrative priority shift evidence base. Now, you talk about the benefits of AI, human AI collaboration. AI enhanced efficiency, innovation, and inclusivity in both education and corporate sectors. Furthermore, AI enhances productivity, such as lesson creation, using tools like OpenAI's GPT and enabling teachers to focus on interactive teaching. You have an example of AI-assisted content generation tools like OpenAI GPT, and your research underscores the benefits of AI augmenting creative processes in teaching. So recent studies from MIT's Teaching Innovation Lab highlight what they term augmentation paradox in education, where AI tools simultaneously offer unprecedented efficiency gains while potentially undermining core teaching competencies. How do we architect the framework that maximizes AI's benefits while preserving the essential human elements of education? And that is a recurring theme every week we talk, isn't it?
Yeah. You were with me in SETU in Waterford recently. You heard me talk about children who are neurodiverse and differently abled. And the manner in which what we're doing in a research project at the moment in AI number 4, edu.eu, utilizing 2 applications which we've developed called TeacherMate for the teachers and Study Buddy for the students, have both empowered, engaged, enabled, and enhanced the journey of both the pedagogue, the teacher, and the student, the learner, and the teacher as a learner, and the student as a teacher in the process. Indeed, tomorrow, I'm in schools all day working with pilot phase 2 that has, you're going to love this, Teresa, that has augmented both TeacherMate and Study Buddy from the feedback of the students who are considered to be neurodiverse and the teachers, so that we are developing applications coming from the mouth of babes, from whence comes the truth, to enhance their teaching and learning. And in AI for EDU, we're doing that right now. And tomorrow, we're working in schools with these students. So everything that you're saying there, I acknowledge. But I also want to acknowledge that at the cold face of what everyone is talking research, I will have everything tomorrow. And even though it will be upper in a lower second level and secondary school, but also upper primary elementary education, these students and teachers have ownership. Notice the word ownership of the AI journey and AI free view, which they will now experience in a multimodal manner tomorrow, that they know they have been responsible for coding, for changing, for making. So therefore, they believe and know and ought to know that what they're using has come from their own soulfulness, their own humanity. And then that's how it's done. What comes from the ground, if it is properly nurtured, is good.
Yeah. Some great data to be collected there, and some great opportunities for somebody like me collecting other perspectives from a psychological perspective. It's great data. You then you have the counter argument, the risk of over-reliance on AI. What Harvard's Educational Technology Lab calls the preemptive governance imperative suggests we need robust guardrails before, not after, widespread AI adoption. How do we establish governance structures that protect human-centered education while harvesting AI's benefits?
Well, we can't do knee-jerk reaction, which is what we're doing right now. Like we said, AI is like Usain Bolt, the sprinter, and we are like the snail. But the old story of the snail and the tortoise, and the whole idea, the hare and the tortoise, we have to realize that this, whether we like it or not, is 50 years old, but yet most people think it just was born 24 months ago or 36 months ago. We have to come back to what we said throughout whole blog 9. The counter argument is in every blog, and I've put that in every blog, because to me the important thing is hashtag AI debate.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. Sorry, Teresa, they're back up again.
Yes.
Spoonful of sugar or diabetes. Choices and options. But one thing is certain. Governments, and particularly departments of education and skills under any other name, must ensure that there is a clear transparency, validity, and reliability that has been, like the carpenter, measured twice and cut once before it gets near schools. The issue right now is that with the pace of development, they are coming in the door and no one is actually looking at the diabetes or the possibility of death from those overuse of sugar, because people are nearly afraid to stand up and be counted. And again, I come back to the school, and I would like to mention it. One of the schools tomorrow is a senior school called St. Thomas's in Dublin, 24. And the children there and the teachers there are so open to this journey because we trust ourselves as human beings together to be there pour changer la vie d'un seul enfant, to change the life of one child, but that one child is also the teacher. So together, there is a journey of a relay instead of the individual 100 meters. But in doing that, we also acknowledge that this isn't easy. Resilience is vital. The capacity to learn, unlearn, relearn. The capacity to know that what we think we know today may indeed, because we're preparing students for the society which does not yet exist, may not be the case tomorrow. Therefore, the creativity, the critical thinking, the human capacity to do things.
On a continuum, the fluidity.
And the first time in this blog, the consciousness that we possess. Why, as humans, do we turn away from that consciousness when we just want to, it's not happening because I can't see it?
Yes.
Why do we do that?
The key governance areas required: pedagogical sovereignty, protection, research evidence, creative development safeguards, research basis, knowledge, democracy, protection, evidence base, critical thinking, preservation, research support, and implementation controls are the key elements. Now, to come back to my hobby horse in org psych, let's finalize this blog with a few questions about the education milieu as a workplace and the teacher as a worker in a workplace. So, recent research from Harvard Business Review points to a fascinating paradox in education. This is very interesting. While other workplaces are grappling with AI integration across generational lines, educators face a unique dual adaptation challenge. They must simultaneously navigate their own generational relationship with AI while teaching students who are often more technologically fluent and savvy than themselves. How do you see this power dynamic affecting the psychological contract between teachers and students, particularly when compared to typical workplace hierarchies in other sectors where generational AI fluency trends tend to align more closely with organizational seniority?
You're going to have a revolution initially because, first of all, colleges of education do an incredible job at preparing young teachers to go into an environment where, let's face it, any industry out there realizes that their future workforce is that human being in that classroom. Yet how many times have I heard them say, oh, it's when they finish school and they come out of that college, they think they know everything, but they know nothing, so we're going to start teaching them. First of all, that's the first major divide, that somehow industry seems to think it's better than education. And educationists are professionals, consummate professionals, incredible professionals doing their job. Secondly, educationalists and teachers need to also understand that the village schoolmaster and the one small head knowing everything is no longer the reality of education. And the fact is, there are kids in front of you who are probably more adept at utilizing certain things than you ever will be. And the fact is, that is called the construction of learning. What Papert called an idea of children and teachers constructing their own learning in a classroom. The sage on the stage sometimes now needs to become the mosquito, the person peripherally running around. We need to look at new ways or approaches. And of course, the dynamic of seniority and that sense of, well, I have a right to do this because I've been here longer than you. The fact is, that's not a bad thing, but it's only bad if it prevents moving forward in ways that actually engage, enable, empower, enhance the consciousness of the human journey, which is educo, to lead forward. So I think in many ways, industry needs to cop itself on and realize that the person coming out of college probably has theoretical knowledge that can add to whatever industry they're going into if it is properly nurtured. The idea that someone is young doesn't mean that they're stupid or less educated than someone else. They may be less experienced. And students are obviously less experienced in teaching than teachers, but students are neurodiverse and they learn in different ways. So when you sit down with teachers, I walk into classrooms, have this privilege of watching incredible teachers sitting down with students and sharing a journey together. Because again, the society which does not yet exist will not be void of consciousness, humanity, creativity. Now the next word, empathy.
Empathy, yes, of course. Yeah.
Humanity. And oh my God, unconditional love.
Yeah.
Now, these are some of the core values and traits which make us beautifully human, and dare I say it, sadly, inhumane.
Yeah.
But AI can coexist with us in that environment, as can industry and teachers. I see it every day are doing this. But of course, you're going to have that human conflict because humans go, I have a right. It's like as if there's an entitlement there. There's a huge revolution, re-evolution of mindset and behavior to happen yet.
So there's a striking disparity in how AI competency is judged across professions. While business professionals are often praised for simply utilizing AI tools to meet metrics, educators face intense scrutiny. and potential public criticism over the AI literacy, despite managing the far more complex task of developing human potential. How do you respond to this societal double standard where educators must simultaneously be AI experts, ethical guardians, and learning facilitators, while their counterparts in other sectors are simply expected to get the job done with AI and garner greater respect?
Lisa, from the beginning of time, anything that's wrong with society is blamed on education. Come on, when does something, actually, even during COVID, oh my God, COVID, schools were treated differently to every other place because did you not know that children couldn't get COVID? And therefore, because children couldn't catch COVID, teachers couldn't catch COVID. So schools were kept open because they were different to the rest of society. Society has always looked on education as being the problem as well as the solution. And anything that's wrong in society is blamed on teachers. So teachers are well used to being blamed for everything that's wrong. But when something goes right, you think that someone has ever stood up. When did I see a president ever standing up and going, I'd like to thank Teresa Hand-Campbell for the incredible work she did for me in 1980 this, for showing this. Very few have ever stood up and said this.
That's true.
But at the same time, you get them standing up and saying, I remember when Michael McNamara was in school, he bit the head off me. The fact is, we blame education for everything. And the fact is, as I was a principal, as a teacher for double decades and quadruple decades, I have always said, if there's a problem, lads, guess who's to blame? Ghostbusters, which is the teachers. So we need to get on and do the job we've always been doing. The fact is that your future workforce is with us, and I'm going to go better. Your bloody pension is 4 years of age inside the classroom right now. You better resource teaching and education and train teachers, and in that area of creativity and critical thinking and consciousness and empathy and humanity, because it's probably the one place, I hope, I believe, where children as citizens are treated, even though I know many will say not, and they have a right to do so, I acknowledge that, are treated equitably.
Equitably and well, And
I know many will have reasons to say not. And I, by the way, I fully acknowledge the wrongs that happened in many areas of society. But it's the one place where if you see 4-year-olds and they don't care who you are, what you are, or where you come from, they're all running around and they're all having fun together, and you go, I wish to God that was the United Nations.
Yeah, I know. The education sector presents a stark paradox. Educators are expected to be to the forefront of AI innovation while operating in what Harvard Business Review calls resource-scarce, high-stakes environments. They're tasked with preparing the next generation for AI-driven future, managing diverse learning needs and managing psychological safety, all the while facing stagnant wages, minimum professional support, and mounting burnout rates that the APA reports are reaching crisis level at this point in time. How do we reconcile society's demand for AI-enhanced education with the reality that we're asking educators to achieve technological transformation from a position of professional precarity? Isn't this another example of what education researchers term innovation without support? Where we're essentially asking teachers to build the plane while flying it, but without fuel, safety equipment, or a landing strip.
Or someone else build the plane, and when it crashes, blame the bloody teachers. Just like we said. You see, again, pay nuts, get monkeys.
Yeah.
You've got to invest in the area at a very early stage to ensure that the ROI you spoke about, the $1 and the $5, the $1 and the $7, provides that. And the fact is, the one area we don't look to very often is, and it's very, even though people will say their GDP and all things, all the amount of money and everything they're investing in education is massive. The fact of the matter is that in many countries, and in particular in our own country in Ireland, there is a massive lack of investment when it comes to education to ensure that equity of opportunity is there. And when it comes to continuous professional development, the education centres and support centres are doing their absolute best.
Of course,
and the government is trying. But I still say that there are huge opportunities there for in school, working within the core values of what they do, learning together.
Well, if it's done right, there's a massive body of research there being done on teacher well-being and burnout. The research from the APA 2003 Work in America survey reveals a troubling phenomenon they term innovation-induced burnout among educators, with 78% reporting significant stress from constant technological adaptation demands. This intersects with what Stanford's Education and Wellbeing Initiative called the double burden. Teachers experiencing heightened anxiety about AI competency while simultaneously managing student AI-related stress and ethical concerns. Now, looking at the economic data, the picture becomes even more stark. The Economic Policy Institute's analysis show that while private sector AI specialists command average salaries and salary increases of 18 to 24% year on year, teachers face what they term tech penalty paradox. Expected to master and implement AI technology while experiencing real wage declines, averaging 3.2% annually when adjusted for inflation. MIT's Workplace Learning Study found private sector employees receive an average of 85 hours of paid technical training annually, while educators report self-funding an average of 92 hours of tech-related professional development. You see the inequity?
The big inequity there is paid and self-funded. And the fact is that, apart from the other inequities which are there, but the fact is, if you're self-funding, isn't that incredible to think that you're looking at a minute increase in your salary each year, but yet you are funding your professional development to ensure that as a professional in a classroom, you're giving the best you possibly can to every single student in an equitable way. And at the same time, you've got companies who are funding all of their people to go out and do it, hopefully so that their funds or their companies can have a better ROI, 1 to 5, so they can make more profits. Surely the fact of the matter is, we're now talking about profit versus people. And now we're not even going to get into politics at this moment.
In all of my upskilling, I was always the only educationist in the room who was paying her way herself. I was in with big pharma, engineers, architects, accountants, everybody else was companies paying for them, you know? Yeah. So I know what it looks like. So
what it feels like, Teresa, what it feels like when you know that everyone else has been paid for there and you're paying your own. But the only thing is that shows you as a teacher, you were soulfully taking ownership of that leading forward. And I would have to say the vast majority of teachers have had the privilege of preparing for their journey in education in colleges and working with them as a teacher and as a principal. And in many ways, their journey, it is some of the greatest and most humbling moments of my life to see the sacrifices that they do make.
It has equipped me with the key right until I pop my clogs to help others and to make a difference in other people's lives who are still working at the coalface or who are working across other professions, you know? So the final question, with this research context, how do we address what the Harvard Business Review terms the innovation well-being gap in education, where those tasked with preparing the next generation for AI-driven future are experiencing both psychological depletion and economic marginalization at unprecedented rates? How can we justly expect educators to be both AI pioneers and emotional anchors for their students, while systematically denying them the psychological safety and economic resources that research shows are fundamental to sustainable innovation?
Well, if you put it that way, you basically brought in the two most important things. And I would have to say you can't achieve it, because if you make direct statements like that, how do we do X if Y exists? Yes. Well, the only answer is, how do you do X if you change Y? And the second thing is, in order to create an environment of well-being, wellness, an environment that goes to ease from disease or dis-ease, And sadly, I have read quite a bit of, I won't say research, I've read many articles in the last few years where there are certain countries that even look on wellness in schools as being some sort of voodoo, as they say in Dublin. And going, wellness practices with children are considered to be voodoo. Anything that brings a person to a place of ease.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking drugs and all these things. I'm talking about practices that have been, hopefully AI eventually, reliably and validly checked and tested by the professionals to show that they actually work. If you can do that, and you can bring your educators to a place where they know that they are humanly and humanely treated as professionals and are prepared in a manner where they can engage meaningfully and consciously, mindfully and soulfully, empathically and humanely with the learners, they also being learners, then you've created the environment. But Teresa, don't forget, education is going to want to bloody well assess that.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's my problem. That's the biggest problem. And people might say, so what are you going to do about it, Daithí? I say, well, actually, we've been doing this with students and actually testing these disruptive assessment models in a neurodiverse way. And again, I come back to AI for EDU. And indeed, we're looking at it from a sustainability citizenship perspective on the program of Synapses Academies. And in many other ways, we're doing this. But sadly, Teresa, I don't want to end on a negative note, but sadly, no one want to listen to poor Daithí, because Daithí be retired many years now, and he be old and maybe a little bit obsolete. But the reality is, all we want to do is give back in service in the most humble way we can, because we know nothing. But the nothing we know, we're happy to share.
I think even our conversations on the handshake, which prompted all of this conversation with and analyzing your blogs, it has been very good. For those who are following us, we have put the hard questions out there. And I think we've started a conversation that has got to be had and got to be continued. And we want more of our listeners to come forward with their opinions and to get involved in this conversation, because this conversation is crucial. It's foundational to where we're going and how it pans out down the line.
It's the elephant in the room. And there's only one more 10 blog to go. Man, blog number 10 will be a rather Daithí-esque. D-A-I-T-H-A-I. Someone said to me recently, you have a double AI in your name. I said, God, if there is a God, Valhalla, universe,
well, I will rattle your cages with all of my questions. And
as always,
the students I taught, I meet them now as parents themselves, as young adults, and they say, you always said, would you ask the questions? Stop sitting and accepting everything. Just ask the questions. So I have been the reason. Well, I've been blamed for some wild moves made by and decisions made by past students. Daithí, thank you. I invite listeners to please get in touch with us when you listen to the handshake and join the conversation.
Join the conversation, keep the debate going, choices and options. No one has taken anything away from us. Mila, Margaret, looking forward to blog 10, everyone. Get involved.
Thank you. Thank you.